Hello, I'm Terry Christensen, and this is Valley Politics. Have you ever wondered what it's like running for City Council and what it takes to win? If so, we've got answers for you today. Sergio Jimenez, who was elected to the San Jose City Council in November, is here to share his experience with us. Later, Mike Hayes will brief us on the work of Momentum for Mental Health. And then we'll close our show with an interview with Claire Benson, an activist in the 1970s and 1980s, and one of the leaders of a campaign that beat San Jose's old growth machine and changed the city's development policies forever. All this next on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone, and welcome San Jose City Councilman Sergio Jimenez, just elected in November 2016.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. We're really pleased to have you because we want to learn all about running for City Council. So why don't we start off with what made you do it, what led you to do it, and what gave you the confidence to do it? It's a big step.
It certainly is. I think one of that question is often asked during the campaign trail, but the first reason is that I thought that my community, seeing the candidates that were coming forward, I really saw missing from that is someone that had been involved in the community. So I, having been involved, thought that I could potentially be a good representative. But the other thing stems from my upbringing, is growing up not really having much access to elected officials and understanding how the city worked. I really wanted to bring, with my unique background, which hopefully I'll have a chance to share, I wanted to give people a voice at City Hall that often don't have a voice or a seat at the table. And so that was something that inspired me to run. And the confidence, growing up in a challenged upbringing, single mom, she worked a low-wage job for many years. I was the first one in my family to attend college. And that really, you grow up being sort of fearless. And so the confidence just stemmed from me not feeling like I had anything to lose, that I was passionate about it, and why not?
Tell us what you did to prepare to run, not so much when you made the decision, but even before that. What helped set you up to be a credible candidate?
Yeah, I think what helped set me up is the fact that I saw very early on, many years before I even decided to run, the fact that it was important to be involved in the community. So I started a neighborhood association. I was on the Parks Commission. I had exhibited, I think, very early on an interest in serving others and being involved in the community. And that's really what I think was important to establish very much early on, even before the idea of running even came to my mind, is I thought it was important to be involved, and I think that's what led to it.
That's called paying your dues. And,
some would say.
And I look at a lot of candidates who I think kind of try to skip over that phase. But in paying your dues, not only do you serve the community, but you build your network, right?
Certainly. So a lot of the people I interacted with during the campaign, community leaders, other key stakeholders, they were people that I had built relationships with through the years, through my work.
You don't have to introduce yourself to them. You just have to say, now I'm running for City Council. And did you get a good response when you started saying that to people?
Yeah, it sort of started snowballing after some community meetings when people said, hey, Osh Kalra is terming out, maybe you should do it, giving me a nudge on the arm, and that's when the wheels started turning for me. But yeah, so some of those folks already knew me going in, and so that introduction wasn't necessary.
Your district is District 2, the Edenvale district.
Correct.
It's one of the most diverse in the city, and I mean really diverse. There's no predominant ethnic or racial group. It's about a third white, about a third Latino, and 25-30% Asian. Many Vietnamese, but Indo-Americans like Osh Kalra, your predecessor. What did you do to introduce yourself to that diverse population, and what did you have to do in the campaign to adapt to reaching the diversity of voters?
I think that's a good question. During the campaign, I often describe District 2 as a microcosm of the city. I really do think that it encapsulates what the city is, the diversity and the wonderful things that stem from the diversity. What I did was, being involved in committee, I had already interacted with all these different groups that you're referring to. But specifically in the campaign, I did notice that obviously Trump was on the ballot to be voted on as well.
Yeah.
And so I really thought it was crucial to, I speak Spanish, for example, so it was absolutely crucial to reach out to the Latino population that quite frankly sometimes stays home because of lack of activation, just engagement. And so knocking on doors, talking to someone in their language, them seeing a candidate for the first time, that was so vital to trying to get people engaged and to care about their neighborhoods.
Was there resistance among white voters? Would you get a good response from them too? You speak English, so that...
Right, certainly. No, I didn't find that. I didn't find that at all. We obviously, going into the race being cognizant of that I'm Latino, I speak Spanish, I was actually born in Mexico. That wasn't, I seek to represent everyone, so I didn't, there were very few occasions where, targeting a specific audience where I would share a little bit more about my story, but everyone was wonderful.
I'm pretty sure all that work with neighborhood groups in advance of becoming a candidate help with those connections and acceptance across communities.
Correct, and that's where some of the diversity of the population comes in, because you get different neighborhood groups in different parts of the district. Say the Santa Teresa foothills, they're a little different, both in the diversity and makeup of the groups as far as the interest as compared to folks by the Round Table, Rotor.
You have fairly affluent areas, fairly low income areas of renters.
Correct.
Very diverse.
Yes,
very challenging.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So we needed to send information out in Vietnamese and Spanish and English, of course.
Yeah.
And so it really took a multifaceted effort to address all that.
How much money did you raise?
Last I looked, it's been a while since the reporting happened, but I think we raised a total of about $130-something thousand.
$130,000.
I believe so, yes, around there.
Did you think you could do that?
No. Going into this, one of the questions that I would be asked early on is how much of your own money are you going to put into this?
Yeah.
My wife's a social worker. I work for the county, so we knew that was very limited going in. Right. So I've only put in a very minimal amount of money of my own, so that required that I worked extra hard, really reaching out to friends, families, colleagues, anyone I knew got a phone call from me. And if they're watching today, I apologize for all the phone calls. But it was necessary.
So you raised basically in individual contributions.
Correct. So the $600 limit really relegated you to that.
Yeah.
But I learned very quickly, people, if they were able to give $20, $10, $600, it all
and then
made
you
the
called and
difference.
asked again.
Certainly. So if someone didn't get me to the full 600, I would call and ask for the remainder.
600 is the maximum city.
Exactly, and that was bumped up to 600 just a few years ago.
Yeah.
From 500 to 600. So.
Yeah. And what did you spend the money for? Why do you need $130,000 to run for city council?
So it's challenging, and that was probably the scariest aspect of this, is trying to figure out how am I going to raise all this. But the way it was spent is mailers, reaching out to folks.
Mail.
Right? Putting in mail, had some campaign staff, a campaign manager, office supplies, something as mundane as stamps.
Yeah.
So it just really goes to everything.
Mostly,
lawn signs.
But lawn signs and mail.
Correct.
Probably the two big items.
Correct.
Other than whatever you're able to pay your staff.
Exactly.
Did you have a professional consultant?
I did. I thought it was necessary to have a very professionally run campaign. When you're talking to folks, part of the aspect of them taking you seriously, know that you have someone that's been in the game for a little while helping you along, and so that was absolutely necessary.
Well, what do they do that is absolutely necessary? What do they do that actually helps?
Yeah, so part of what they do is we talk about strategy, how to respond to negative mailers. We talk about different populations of groups that we definitely need to reach out to, how we're going to reach out to them, development of the mailers. I mean, there's a host of things that go into it that I was unaware of prior to doing this.
So you mentioned mailers as a principal means of communication. You mentioned lawn signs. I know you had a big lawn sign campaign.
Correct.
What other means did you use to communicate with voters?
Well, the biggest way, we had phone banks.
Phone banks, yeah.
We had phone banks, volunteers calling voters. Addition to that, and probably the most important aspect is knocking on doors. Sounds like a crazy idea, but that is so essential.
By you, by volunteers?
By me, essentially, but volunteers. My mother was out there knocking on doors, my brothers, sisters, so getting everyone
having a
that
big
you
family
knew.
helps.
That certainly, that is the case. I benefited from that.
Yeah. And your kids?
Yeah, my kids as well.
How old are they?
17-year-old son now. He was
Yeah.
16 at the time.
Yeah.
14-year-old daughter. They were out there knocking on doors.
They weren't annoyed that Dad was doing this all the time?
A little bit.
A little bit?
So one thing about the campaigns is you realize very quickly that your personal space, because our office
Yeah.
was my garage.
Uh-huh.
And so personal
That saved
space.
some money.
That did save some money, but that also came with other things, is that our personal space was gone. We had people
Yeah.
coming in and out of the house almost every day. And so it really took a family effort. My wife was a treasurer, and so it really was, in fact, a family effort.
You got some organizational endorsements and some big name individual endorsements. Which ones were most important to you? Which ones do you think really helped?
Yeah, the ones that were personally very important to me are a lot of the neighborhood leaders, because that's the folks that
people
interact.
in the district. Yeah.
Exactly. But other than that is, some of the big endorsements for the South Bay Labor Council.
That brought labor volunteers.
That brought a lot of volunteers,
some
resources, but in addition to that, Police Officers Association, the firefighters, they were all super instrumental. And some of the elected officials, Charlotte Powers, Osh Kalra.
My councilman, Raul Perales.
Yes, and Raul was one of the first ones to jump on board and support me, and he was out knocking on doors often, and so I really found that valuable.
One endorsement you didn't get was the Chamber of Commerce. In fact, they did some vicious, really mean mailers attacking you during the primary. How did that feel? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, that was, they endorsed everyone except me. So
in your primary
everyone
race,
in the
all the
primary
other
race
candidates
received an endorsement except
Wow.
me, which
Yeah.
is, obviously it didn't feel good, but I was okay with it. I'm
Well,
very
not
secure.
getting an endorsement is one thing. Getting attacked is.
Certainly. So they spent a little over $100,000 attacking me personally.
You're kidding.
And other organizations chipped into that, obviously.
Wow.
But how it felt horrible. My mom actually called me after she received the first mailer, because she's a voter.
Yeah.
She was crying, and she
Yeah.
said, "Why do they do this to you?" My daughter was getting harassed at school. People asking her, "Oh, is that your dad, the guy that they've been attacking?" But I think it was a blessing in disguise, and it backfired, quite frankly. We thought about how to respond, and my first inclination was to say, "That's not me." That I didn't do that, and sort of trying to revert to attacking them back. But what I found to be most effective after discussing it with folks in my campaign was to really take ownership of who I am as a person, all the negatives and positives, and because that makes me who I am today, all those experiences. And so we sought to present our story and my story to the voters, and I think it really resonated.
How did you present it? You talking to people individually, of course.
Yeah, talking to people individually, but if you're going to reach the masses, most of the money was spent on mailers. So
Yeah.
we spent, I think I wrote a check for about $14,000 to send out a mailer that showed my story, my version of who I am to the voters, and it was a 2-page sort of sheet that had tons of info. And so I think that helped.
You use social media a lot in the campaign too. That's different from the way campaigns have been operating in the past.
Yeah. I use social media, but I'm not. I'm not a fan of taking a lot of photos. I want to be present in the
There are
moment.
an awful lot of photos on your Facebook.
I know. Well, it was necessary. It was absolutely necessary. And so Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I mean, everywhere we could, we would post a photo, a picture. A lot of lawn sign photos. I thought it was essential to show that we were doing stuff, that we were moving things. And actually, watching one of your shows, I remember you had on Ramona from the Mercury News, and she commented that she thought we had a good ground game, I think is what I recall her comments being, and that was true. We thought it was absolutely essential to get on the ground, and we try to show that by having all the photos of the lawn signs.
We've got just a few seconds left. What's your one piece of advice to somebody who's thinking about running for city council?
One piece of advice is, can I give two?
If they're quick.
Thick skin and get ready to work hard.
Work hard.
And have it in
thicken that skin.
Exactly, because it's necessary.
Sergio Jimenez, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Now it's time for community news with Mike Hayes of Momentum for Mental Health.
Hello. My name is Mike Hayes, and I am the Director of Development and Communications at Momentum for Mental Health, a nonprofit organization located in Santa Clara County. 20 years ago, in 1997, 4 agencies with a total of 100 years of services to our community merged to become a leading provider of behavioral health services. We are excited about our programs and community impact, especially as Momentum for Mental Health celebrates its 20th anniversary milestone. This past year, 5,000 individuals were provided high-quality behavioral health and substance use disorder services. Momentum continues to serve those who have some of the most complex mental health needs, in addition to other chronic co-occurring health conditions. It's important to understand these illnesses are treatable and people do recover. The truth is, very few people in the world are untouched by mental illness and substance use disorders. Momentum is showcasing recovery through a project called A Day in the Life of Recovery. This photojournalism and creative video project was designed as a traveling exhibit to showcase amazing insight from real people, recovery champions, who graciously share their personal stories of recovery. We encourage you to view the photo series, videos, and exhibit schedule on our website at www.momentumformentalhealth.org. And while visiting our website, don't forget to register for Momentum's 14th Annual Benefit Golf Tournament, scheduled for Monday, June 12th at the beautiful Los Altos Golf and Country Club. We thank you for supporting our efforts to reduce the stigma surrounding mental illness and increasing access to quality behavioral health care in our community.
Next on Where Are They Now, we talk with Claire Benson, a leader of the 1973 initiative campaign that changed the way San Jose managed growth over the vehement opposition of the city's old guard. Let's take a look. Today we're talking with Claire Benson, who was a leader of a 1973 initiative that changed San Jose's growth policies and introduced a whole new generation of political leaders in the city. Claire moved here in 1969 when her husband got a job at GE Nuclear, which was where the plant shopping center is now. Claire and her husband raised 3 kids here. Claire got involved in local politics pretty early on. Later, she became a realtor and eventually a planning commissioner for the city. So welcome, Claire Benson.
Thank you, Terry.
Let's start by having you tell us what the Almaden Valley was like when you moved here in 1969.
Well, it was fast growing, of course, but it was limited because there was a growth thing beyond
Growth
McKean
boundary,
Road.
yeah.
Yeah, so we knew what we were doing. And of course, housing was only like 3 times your salary, the cost of a house.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that we were very lucky and were able to live very comfortably. But anyway, all my friends were like people and met through League of Women Voters, PTA.
Is that what got you involved in politics initially in San Jose, the League?
Well, that's the first place I joined when I came here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first day.
The city, the population in 1970, about the time you got here, was 400,000, and the city
Yeah.
had grown from 95,000
Yeah.
in 1950, so very rapid growth. And I remember you taking me around Almaden Valley and showing me the sprawling growth that was happening.
Well, it's a fascinating place and has an interesting history in itself.
Oh
So,
yeah, which
I
we don't have
enjoyed
time
that.
for today.
No.
But
That's
so
what it was like.
you got involved in local politics, and eventually, very quickly actually, 1973 was when Measure B, that's the ballot measure you
Right.
sponsored. Measure B is the same as the more infamous recent ballot measure
Right.
on pensions. But
Right.
this is a different Measure B we're
Right.
talking about, 1973. So what led you to get involved with that as an issue, with growth management?
I got a job as a census taker in 1970. So I had a chance to take, and had got that district, Almaden and part of Oak Grove and so on. So saw what was happening, the number of vacancies there were.
So you were going door to door?
No, actually I went from track to track.
Track to track, yeah.
Empty houses everywhere.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then I talked to, after I realized that, I began to think, my heavens, how many kids per household are we talking about? At that time, it was 2.9 children per household.
Per house, wow.
As far as the school district was
Yeah.
concerned. And you just start multiplying those numbers, and seeing, well, if there were 20 units vacant and they were going to each have 3 kids, then how many kids were going to be there? And already we'd gotten into double session, come into double session.
Schools were on double session,
Right.
so
That meant
some kids went early
really
in the morning.
Right, and then the other group came about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and this left all these children out on their own. Their parents had to either get up really early
Yeah.
to feed them breakfast, or they were on their own until,
Some kids were going to school in the dark in the morning,
right.
and other kids were coming home in the dark
And they
by
had to
evening.
drop a lot of the sports things
Yeah.
because they just couldn't figure it in. Now, we didn't just start off with Measure B. We started with trying to find an alternative way for the kids to get some structured programs in the Bret Harte Junior High School by using a big recreation program. And that was all presented to the school board as an alternative. But they turned it down, or at least they didn't move forward with it. And it would have been complicated. And then we would go to the city council and ask them to not approve more subdivisions, that we just couldn't handle the number of children that were coming.
The schools couldn't accommodate the
Right.
number of kids that were coming out of the new
Right.
subdivisions, so you asked the council to limit growth, basically, to limit
Right, to
new
stop
subdivisions, new
approving
housing.
new ones. And then finally we came to Measure B, that
The council wouldn't do it.
They wouldn't do
kept
it,
approving
no,
new housing.
no.
And the school district just couldn't keep up with the housing, couldn't build
Oh,
enough
no.
facilities.
Oh, no, they didn't have any more schools. I mean, that was
Yeah.
it, and they had to do what they did. So my kids were all involved with that, yeah.
So the idea, what did the initiative specify?
Well, specifically that the housing builders had to provide some relief to the schools of some kind, and that actually ended up mostly being portables.
So it didn't say no new housing.
No,
It said if
it
you're going
said
to build
you're
new
gonna-
housing,
yes,
you
then
have to
you have to
compensate the
help.
schools somehow.
Right,
Walt Hayes, who was
Well,
on the
he was
city
on the
council and
council,
was an
yeah.
attorney, he actually wrote the initiative.
right, he did. And carried it through to the state Supreme Court, and it's now state law.
So he figured out the legal language that
Right, that made
proved,
it-
that was approved by the
Right,
courts,
Right, as
right
well
up
as
to the
passed.
state, and I think the U.S. Supreme Court,
I
right?
don't know about that.
Yeah.
I think it's
I think-
at least it's for the state,
yes.
which is a really big
Yes,
deal when
but
you
it
think
w-
about it.
I think it was appealed to the U.S. Supreme
Right.
Court. So did you have any idea what you were taking on? I mean,
No,
San Jose
no.
had an old pro-growth, power elite, build, grow. And here you bunch of women and
Middle-
plus Walt Hayes from the
Oh, there were other men.
from the Almaden Valley
Yeah.
took them on.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea what you were
Well,
doing?
no, not at all. In fact, we didn't even really know who would be opposed, but it was interesting the people who came out in support,
Yeah.
because they saw the same problem, that kids were just being dumped on the street, basically.
So you got it qualified for the ballot by petition. I
Right.
expect you went door
A lot
to
of
door.
work,
Yeah.
and we'd go down the street, and every single person would sign, every adult living in that household,
Wow.
all over Almaden,
Wow.
Oak Grove,
Yeah.
Willow Glen.
Berryessa too, I think. So you get it on the ballot. Did you have a lot of money for the campaign?
Oh, no. In
No.
fact, I don't even remember whether we had any. The San Jose Teachers Union supplied an office.
Yeah.
So somehow or other, the bills got paid. And, I can't remember if we ever took in a penny, but I'm sure we did.
Yeah, not a lot.
No,
I
not
mean,
a lot.
mostly you did
Yeah.
leaflets and went door to door, right?
Yeah.
If I remember right.
Yeah. And then we were, supported by Mort Levine and the Sun newspaper.
The Sun newspaper
Yes.
supported you, which were the really important weekly
Right. And
newspaper locally.
they were
yeah.
very up on everything that was
Yeah.
going on.
The
and-
Mercury News?
No,
No, not so much.
no, they didn't support us.
The mayor, Mayor Mineta?
I think, as far as I remember, Norm kind of never came up. Let's put it that way.
He didn't like it.
He didn't like it.
Well, he was worried that it would actually halt building. It turns
Yeah.
out, of course, it didn't do
No,
that.
it didn't do that.
Who else opposed it?
Well, the Builders Association.
Oh, the builders.
yeah.
And they spent some money.
Yes, they did.
I know there were full-page newspaper
Yeah.
ads.
And their point was that the schools in the city or the subdivisions just didn't really have any. I mean, it wasn't their business, the builder's business, to worry about the school capacity. That was the school district's
of course.
capacity
They would say
problem.
that, yeah.
Right.
And the League of Women Voters supported
Oh, they
the measure
did too.
So that's
yeah,
that's
they
important.
did.
That's always a
And,
credible source of support.
And Frank Fiscalini did too.
Who became a council member,
Well, he was the
and he was
superintendent of schools for East
Side Union
Side
High
Union
School
at the
District.
time.
Yeah.
But Chuck Knight did not.
He was San Jose Unified.
right.
So what
They
happened
were
on
nice to
what
us.
happened on election day?
Well, we won, of course.
By a lot?
I don't
A few.
remember.
You won by a few percentage points, but it was a turnaround. And in that same election, Susie Wilson got elected to the city council. Jim Self got elected to the city council. So
We
there
began
started to be
yeah.
council members who agreed with your positions on managing growth.
Yeah, and now, of course, it's part of the city ordinance. I mean, it's part of the whole planning structure, and it now includes parks as well as schools.
It actually had a big impact statewide and nationally because concurrency now is the key, that when you build housing concurrently, you provide schools, parks, community centers, and libraries.
Yeah.
So you started something really big.
Well, you know, when you get started in something like that, you don't really have any idea of what's going to happen. It's like the pink hat ladies. You know, you don't know always. But it was an interesting experience. I never felt the least bit unhappy about it. We worked really hard. We had a lot of really great people helping us. So, you know, it just was wonderful.
Well, you made history. Congratulations, and thank
you.
you, Claire Benson.
Thank you, Terry.
Measure B won big time in the newer, growth-impacted neighborhoods of San Jose and passed with 53% of the vote overall. That initiative, launched by a bunch of moms in Almaden Valley, was the turning point for growth politics in San Jose. Next month, we'll catch up on county politics with County Supervisor Dave Cortese, who will talk with us about the state of the county in 2017. Meanwhile, you can catch up on previous shows on our website at creatvsj.org or on YouTube by searching for CreaTV San Jose. And you can let us know what you think about our show and suggest future topics or guests by email at valleypolitics@creatvsj.org, on Twitter at valley_politics, and by following us on Facebook. And now that's all, folks. Thanks for watching Valley Politics. See you next time.